Hello, everyone. My name is James Boucher of James Makes Films podcast. And we're going to talk about no budget filmmaking and tips and all sorts of cool stuff like that. So, I guess for this episode, brief introduction. My name is James, and I make videos as well as I write novels occasionally. I was an aspiring filmmaker looking to break into Hollywood. And if you haven't heard of me, well, I obviously didn't break into Hollywood. But this podcast is about working on no budget films and experiences and tips and things you're going to hear from people as you make these things. I assume if you're listening to this, that you're a filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker, maybe looking for some insight or maybe even just to relate to certain experiences. So today's topic, we're going to talk about making a short with no script. That's right, a short with no script. I've done this on occasion where if I at least have some sense of a beginning, middle, and end of a story and what the location and props are, then I go right ahead and just start filming it. But there has been occasions where I attempted a feature with this. And you might wonder, why would you want to start a film without a script? Personally, it's a great exercise, especially if you're starting out, because this allows you to use your imagination. This allows you to use your resources to the full extent. The thing about doing scripted content is everything is kind of on lock. And even though there's room for improvisation, there's room for kind of working with the flow. With having no script, it really frees you because you show up. And yeah, you want to get things done because time is money, even if you have no money. But it really frees you to be spontaneous, to be inspired by your surroundings. So I've done this on a couple of occasions where I attempted to do a feature with no script. It was only until I cast the actors for the smaller roles where then I had a script. But it was not a script for the full movie, it was just a script for their scenes. So my short film called Existence, I filmed last year and finished last year, had one other actress. Her stuff takes up a few minutes. It's about an 18-minute movie. Her stuff takes about maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Her stuff was scripted. My stuff was not. But how did I start? Well, what I did was I had the concept. So I knew that, okay, this guy is going to be in a forest and he's going to be looking for things. And the concept was that his wife died. She was murdered by the company she worked for because she found out some things. So they were attempting to wipe out her existence. And what this guy had to do was find clues that she existed. She left clues for him, and she left a video message, sort of something she did right before she knew she was about to be killed. She then sent this video to her husband, some things to look for to prove she existed. So maybe a little fantastical in the concept, but nevertheless, that was the concept I came up with. And because I had no budget, no resources, and other than casting that one actress, I just had myself. And so what I did was, since I had that concept, and since I knew I was going to film mostly in a forest, and I found some spots in the forest that I wanted to film, I then started doing cue cards and just came up with a whole bunch of scene ideas and started brainstorming. And I figured, okay, if it's 45 scenes, then that should be long enough for a feature. One thing you have to account for is sometimes a scene can only be 10 seconds. So that's the trap I fell under and why I went from a feature to a short, and why you definitely want to at least script your feature. Now for a short, which is what it ended up being, about 18 minutes, it was all based on cue cards. So I think the best thing to do for a short, for this exercise, is come up with a very simple concept, a very simple idea. Think of your one character, maybe two characters, that are in the middle of a conflict or in the middle of trying to do something, accomplish something. It could be something very simple. It could be a heist. It could be, just trying to reach someone, like, a chase, trying to chase someone down before they, give them a message before they go somewhere. And you can always add conflicts in there. Oh, their phone is dead, or, or there's, they bump into someone and that person's angry. Now they're chasing after them. Well, they're chasing after the person they've been chasing after. Those are just concepts. But without a script, you really just want to focus on your location or locations. You want as few as possible. You want it to be as simple as possible, with as few people as possible. Because the other thing you have to factor in is scheduling. You want to factor in continuity. Because if you're filming on different days, and say if you're outside, there's going to be different lighting situations. Even if you're filming inside, if there's a window, different lighting situations. So you're going to be dealing with a lot of continuity. So you're going to have to work with that. But working without a script, I think, is a great exercise at any level. I know I mentioned beginner level, or if you're starting out. But quite honestly, it's a freeing exercise. It forces you to really think in sequence of how things happen for a character and what you can get away with. And you'll be surprised in the kind of scenes you come up with that will make the movie. And like with a script, you tend to stick to the script. You tend to stick to your storyboard. You tend to stick to your shot list. This is great if you're working with a crew, or a large amount of actors, or even if you're involving money. But if you're like myself, where you're pretty much doing almost everything yourself, let alone starring in it and occasionally playing more than one character in it, I definitely recommend doing a short without a script. Because sometimes you're going to spend so much time on a short script, fine-tuning it. Some short scripts, you look and you're like, did that even have a script? There's a lot of scripts that seem more visually, they're told so visually that you're wondering, did it even have a script? It looks like it was just shots, or just, a scene cut together. So I definitely recommend trying it. It's not something I recommend doing all the time, unless you really enjoy it and you have a knack for it. I tried it again over this summer, a film I did called The Flare. No script. I just knew I had a test tube as a prop, which I filled with blue Gatorade to make it look like it was some sort of serum. I had a lab coat. I had one of my shirts from a fake company I made for another short film I did years ago. And then I had the forest, and all I had was like, okay, well, this guy's running with this test tube in the forest. That's all I have. It's June. I'm going to start. So I spent June, Saturday, beginning of summer. It was a beautiful day, pretty hot, but not too hot. And I spent some time just going around some cool spots in the forest. I found this abandoned bridge, sort of a train track bridge, which was discontinued. And I used that as one of my locations. I've overused that spot by now anyway. I used that as one of my locations, and then I found other spots in the forest and just came up with little ways of like, okay, well, this guy's running in a forest. He's gonna go down a slope. And when you go down a slope too fast, you're gonna trip, you're gonna slip. So that's what I did. So I'm like, okay, well, there's my little action scene or a little conflict within a. You want to add as much conflict as you can. But so I filmed that. I filmed myself going over the bridge, and I thought, okay, it's hot. This guy's going across a bridge. Maybe he's been running a lot already. So then I had the heat exhaustion factor in. So he starts getting a little nauseous. So I filmed myself getting kind of dizzy walking along this bridge. And found a building. And like, okay, well, I use the outside of this building as potentially the lab that he's running from. So come up with all these things I could think of in this location, involving the concept about this guy running around with a test tube. When I did that, that was my start. I didn't exactly have a plot. I didn't know how everything was going to factor in. I didn't even know what was in the serum. But what it did was it forced me thinking, because I'm like, okay, well, summer's in Toronto. That's where I live. That's where I'm from. Summers in Toronto are short. They start around May and they end around September. There's going to be people who are going to argue with me on that, but to me, once you're in the 20 degrees, you're in summer, in Toronto at least. And sometimes you get those heat waves. So that's all I knew, and I knew I had a timeline. So I focused on that timeline. I'm like, okay, well, that's what I have. Now it's time to come up with ideas of what I'm going to film next time, knowing I'm going to use the same location. So come up with things like, okay, well, if I don't have any progressive ideas for the concept or the plot yet, other than my very basic, guy running in a forest with a test tube, I came up with little other conflicts, other little things. I had a walkie-talkie, so I just started having conversations, sort of improvisational conversations, as if I was talking to someone at the company. And then I was like, okay, well, who's chasing me? What costumes do I have? I have this sort of ninja mask, which kind of looks like someone would wear if they were hacking into something. So I'm like, okay, I'm being chased by those kind of guys. Why are they chasing me? Because this serum is important. So then I start filming those kind of scenes where I'm reacting to that as the situation. So then I got some dialogue scenes. That's where I kind of get the idea, okay, well, these are the people that are chasing me now. I don't have an answer of what's in the serum yet, but at least I have a little more to go on. And then also because I was wearing a lab coat, it's summer, it's hot, and it was getting hotter. Each Saturday I started filming. So I was like, okay, well, I need scenes where I'm not wearing this lab coat because I'm not going to wear this lab coat all summer. So I, take off the lab coat, film some scenes of me being dehydrated, about me dealing with this and that. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And that's how I progressed to, it did not end up being a feature. It ended up being a short film. But because I had no script up until I cast an actor and actress at the very tail end of filming, I scripted their stuff. And how I did that was like, okay, well, someone's going to be looking for this guy or helping this guy. So I had another guy in a walkie, and he could be the guy that my character was talking to. So this character's just trying to find my character. And then the other character I cast was the manager of the company that he's running from. So I just got her scenes in, and then that's when I'm like, okay, well, this guy, why is he running? He took the test tube. I had some scenes that I added for characters, such as me drinking. So I had a flask as one of my props. And I had myself drinking sometimes. So I showed, okay, well, this guy's an alcoholic. That's why he got fired. That's why he took the test tube. He's on alcohol, so he's drunk. And the company's fired him, but they're still sending someone to look out for him to make sure he's safe because he's running around the forest with a test tube. So it was that kind of thing that I came up with. And then I just used my surroundings to also articulate more about what the movie was about. Because I'm like, okay, if he's an alcoholic, he's looking up at the sun, he's dehydrated, he's delirious. And then that's when I came up with, maybe he sees this lens flare from the sun as an extraterrestrial. And in post-production and the editing program, I can use a filter to kind of blow it out to make it look like it's a big sort of surreal, glowy thing. So he thinks it's an extraterrestrial, even though it's not. So it's those kind of things in no-budget filmmaking that you can do when you're not really working with a script. Now, in hindsight, for something as long as, even more than 10 minutes, both the films I talked about here, it's just under 20 minutes. For a 10-minute movie, I think, unless, of course, you have a couple of actors and dialogue is very important, definitely script it. But if you're doing something that's not very important with dialogue, go for it. It's a great exercise because the great thing about filmmaking, it's problem solving, especially when you're not dealing with money. You have, $0 and you're just working with your resources. Then, I find sometimes a script limits me. It limits my creativity. It limits what I can do. And I tend to get really locked down on what that script is. And there's a little bit of bend and leeway when I'm filming it, but it gets to a point where you're just trying to get it done. And sometimes that's not as inspiring as I'd like it to be. So that's why I've done a few times where I filmed without a script. I have a lot of deleted scenes from past movies. I have stock footage of just random things I filmed over the years. Sometimes I put that together and see how can I make a movie out of this. And then it can always add something new to use that old footage and make it into a whole new film. That'll lead me to another podcast about recycling footage. But this episode was about filming without a script. All you need really is an outline, a map out. You want to know your location or locations, and you want to keep them as few as possible. You're basically following the same rules you would if you were to start writing a script for a no-budget movie. But if you're doing no script, you're going to write down what props you can use. You're going to write down who you can get to work with you on this movie, who's going to play the character. Look at what you have for costume. Look at what you have for locations. And just think of what's something, what's an exchange or a conflict. What can you do as a story? And that's really all you need. And you're working, again, with your resources and come up with outline or cue cards, just a whole bunch of scene ideas involving all that stuff, and try to make it into a cohesive story. And if you're pressed for time like I was, like I had this summer, but I knew I was filming a feature. And I did take a month off because I did do day one. And I was not, I was like, I don't know, like I still don't have the answers. I just have this, what I filmed, me running around with a test tube around the forest. So I was like, oh, maybe it won't be a feature, maybe it'll be a short. But I got caught up with some other projects, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep this on the hard drive for now and see how I feel. And then a month later, then I was inspired. I was just like, okay, you know what? I have maybe 2.5 months now. Time is of the essence, so I'm gonna focus on pushing this as far as I can. And every day I went out to film with whatever new ideas I could. So say if I was filming on Saturdays, I had a whole week to brainstorm while I was at work, on my way to work, at home, and editing the footage as I went along, or at least cutting some of the scenes together. Then start brainstorming, okay, well, what else can I film? What else is this character doing? And then it started to take shape. And it's a good way to get practice at just storytelling. Storytelling is basic. You have your beginning, middle, and end. You have your character who has this conflict, or something's been thrust upon them. They were doing one thing, now they have to do another. And then all the stuff they have to overcome to get to that spot. That's basic storytelling. And that's all you really need to know for filming without a script. So this is James Boutcher from James Makes Films podcast. Thank you for listening.